Welcome to the Global Discussion, a discussion with creatives, leaders, and thinkers. My name is Simon Hodgkins, and today I'm really happy to be joined by Pia Lichter. Pia, it's so good to have you on the show. Welcome to the Global Discussion. Let's begin by asking you, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what you're into and what you do for our worldwide audience. Over to you, Pia.
Sure, wonderful to be here, Simon. Thank you for having me. A little bit about me and what I do. So I've worked as a creative director slash copywriter slash creative strategist for well over a decade, 15 years for most of my creative career in advertising, branding, and marketing agencies across London, Gothenburg, and now Copenhagen. And so that was really, really exciting work. Working in an agency is like being in a SWAT team for a lot of different companies. You get called in when there's like a tough commercial challenge, and then you get the A team together, and you crack it creatively. And that's really fun for me because it just allows me to have like so many different types of challenges and clients and yeah, interesting ways of solving commercial challenges. So I thrived in that for a long time. You also dive deep in, agency life and work is a world of its own. And then, the last agency I worked at was called We Love People, and it was a purpose-driven creative consultancy. And I started veering into more consultancy, where really using creativity for good to create an impact in the world and drive positive change. So the real story is much longer, but I'm giving you the cliff notes. So that was wonderful. And then I kind of started to feel where the ceiling was, the walls were, the floor. I knew what it was. I'd been doing it for a long time. And even though it was good, even better than good, it wasn't as thrilling as it used to be. It felt like something else was calling me. It was time for what I call a creative evolution. You know what I mean? It was time for an extinction moment needed to happen. And I think those extinction moments are really scary because it means leaving something behind that we once did really well and that once lit us up, but we've either grown or things have changed, and it's time for the next expression of what we might create in our careers and in the world. And that led me to jump ship and start Kollektiv Studio in my own business for the first time because I got really curious about what would happen when I channeled my creativity into building my own business and my own brand. What might happen? Whoo, no walls, no ceiling, no floor. I don't know. And that's both beautiful and terrifying, which is kind of like life. So that's the short and tall of it, for
Well,
what I've been
thank
doing.
you, Pia, for sharing that with us. And Kollektiv Studio, that's in Copenhagen, right?
That's in
That's,
Copenhagen.
that's where you're
Based in
working out of.
Copenhagen, working with uh, people who do things differently to make a difference, who have visionary tendencies and a rebellious streak worldwide.
Love that. Love it. And I want to ask you, like the creative side of agency life, being a creative director, you've worked in lots of different, well-known companies and brands. You've worked
Mhm.
on a lot of great creative over the years. How did you get into that? Were you a copywriter? Did you do a bit of journalism? Was it in college? Like, how did you fall into the creative world, Pia?
Oh, goodness. So I actually always wanted to use communication for good. So I remember I finished my undergrad in New York City. I'm from New York City originally. People might hear my accent isn't Danish. People say, "Oh, your English is so good." I'm like, "Yeah, it's pretty good. I'm not from here." Anywho, so I did my undergrad at Hunter College in New York City, interdisciplinary studies, language, literature, arts, and writing. So I always knew that that was my creativity, and writing especially was sort of my form of expression. My dad is an abstract painter. I grew up on the Lower East Side, so I always had art in my life. And people would ask me, so are you a painter like your father? And I'd say, No, but I write. That's my it. People expected that it runs in the family. I have another way of expressing myself. So it was always a red thread. I worked as a journalist in Sri Lanka after I had graduated from my undergrad to see what that might be like and be in a different culture. Also I'm a recovering nomad. Like you, Simon, I've traveled to many different places and lived in many different countries. And I thought, okay, if I'm going to do this for a living, that was what I hoped, can I survive in a very different culture? And it was fascinating. And that took me to Sri Lanka. And then I came back and decided to do my master's in global affairs at NYU. Very different. I thought, okay, well, let's open it up. Could I work in communications? Because I was at the UNDP already writing copy for their website. I was doing different things. Again, trying to drive change in some way. That's why I love that I went kind of full circle where my last agency job tied the knot under, wanting to use creativity for good. So after that, after I graduated, summa cum laude, I'm proud of myself. I gave up everything to just focus on studies from NYU in global affairs. I had an option to work at the UNDP in New York in their marketing and communications department on a contract role. And I had some heavy loans on my back at the time. And the salary at the UNDP was woo, and it was contract, which means that it was not guaranteed. And then I had the opportunity to work on an economic documentary in Bahrain. And I thought, woo, this is exciting. Let's do that. And so I left and I did that. And what I thought would be a creative project, ended up being ad sales to try to produce a documentary in the Middle East. So that was really tough, but I learned so much through that 9-month experience. And then I went to London. I had a job opportunity. I was looking for work. I thought, oh, Paris, London, somewhere. And then I ended up going to London where, because of my global affairs background, because of this, communication, because of the work that I had done, they felt that I was a perfect fit for, at the time it was Shell. Okay. But Shell, we were working with the head of creative was a very green guy and trying to initiate change from the inside. And we were working with the citizens of tomorrow, basically the youth that are often not involved in the global conversation around climate and the tensions between, what we might have to give up for the energy challenge ahead. And it was it was a huge project at the time. And they thought that my unique combination, also geopolitically, was a perfect fit. And that was my foray into an agency world. It was a brand agency. And it was baptismal by fire, but I remember being in Marylebone Road in one of the meeting rooms during a brainstorm and just ideas just popping and feeling like, oh my God, I can't believe I get paid to do this. Like, this is where I'm supposed to be. It felt so exciting just to be able to ideate, to create, to strategize, and then write campaigns and different projects to life. And that, I wish it was a short story for you because I know we're 25, 30 minutes, is how I got into the world of agency life. So it was definitely not like most of my life. It was not straight and narrow.
Well, it's interesting because on one hand, you said baptism of fire, which I can understand because that kind of challenge and brief with a company like Shell at the time was huge. I mean, that was no easy task to take on. And trying to make change from even within with a company of that size and structure, I think many people in the creative or marketing areas would understand that that's not an easy place to start. But it seems to have copper fastened your excitement for that innovation, that creativity, and being able to do that. And that sort of pinch yourself moment where you go, somebody's paying me for this. This is brilliant,
Yeah,
So that's great. That's when you know you're in the right spot, right?
absolutely.
I want to ask you if I can, going back to something you said earlier, which was about that sort of rebellious streak, that creativity that you're talking about with Kollektiv Studio. How are you doing that today? Is there anything you're really focused in on? Because we've got so many distractions today. Consumers and businesses have got lots of shiny new things to look at all the time. AI is like, this tidal wave coming at us. We're all swimming somehow, trying to figure all that out too. What are you doing? Is there anything sort of, that you're focused on or laser focused on to say, look, if you want to get cut through, if you want that creative streak, if you want to be a little bit rebellious, here's what I'm focused on. Does that make sense, Pia?
Yeah, it
What are we
does.
thinking about there?
So I'll just give you a little bit more backstory before I answer that question because it will lead us there. While I was at my last agency role, We Love People, I realized that a lot of the challenges we faced were most of the challenges, they're human focused. It's either leadership and it's really down to the people who are leading the change and the charge. And that required a different skill set than how I had been, my expertise. And so that kind of drew me into the world of coaching, that and a friend who posted about it. I said, girl, what are you doing? That sounds really fascinating. And so that kind of brought me into the world of coaching. And I did a coaching certification, which was fantastic, because when we're a creative at an agency, the focus is often on you as the problem solver who can come up with the best idea in the least amount of time within budget, right? Most breakthrough creative idea. When you're moving into coaching, it's not about you at all. It's about the human in front of you. So it's about facilitating and creating space to really allow someone to heighten their self-awareness and get curious about themselves and be the mirror and ask powerful questions and share intuitive hits. So it was fascinating. And ultimately, it seems like the creativity and coaching are diametrically opposed, not opposed, but very different at least. And actually, they're both, what connects them both is it's the art of transformation. Creativity, in essence, is the art of transformation. It's taking like no thing, right, and making it into something. And coaching very much is about raising awareness, heightening self-awareness so people can, evolve into their next self or their next project, or become more of themselves. I'm not a big fan of the best self. Anyway, so that led me to do creativity in a different way. So the work that I do often is really about understanding what the human in front of me is looking to create. A lot of people work with me when they're at a sticky juncture, is what I call it. So what worked, and this rings a bell to my own story, what used to work, what you might have really been successful at before, no longer lights you up. You're feeling a call for something else, but it's really scary to take that step or that jump or to make it that decision to make a change, especially when we don't know exactly what we'll be changing into. That could be a brand. I've worked with founders and also executives. Like, okay, and not really an interior design company anymore. I'm looking to, pivot and expand into becoming a lifestyle brand, but I have no idea how to do that. And so it's getting curious about the person who is creating that brand and what the vision is and why that matters, and then helping them do both, getting under the skin of what drives them, what stops them, what moves them, what motivates them, what they're looking to really create, and then helping bring that to life through my creative skills that I've gathered through the years. So it feels very different. It's very much about channeling, listening, and then translating and clarifying. Oh, this is what I'm hearing. This is the vision. This is actually what you're looking to create. This is what you're looking to do next. How can we co-create that? That's why I actually use the word creative partnership more than consultant, because really, to me, it's about deep partnership. That's where I've done my best award-winning work, is through close collaboration and partnership with the clients I'm working with in agency life. So I'm doing this, but on a whole different level. And so sometimes I could also be working with, let's say, an author who feels blocked, something is just stopping them from completing a manuscript. Well, that requires another level of exploration than just saying, okay, let's make a plan for your writing. That's not going to do it, right? And so I find the work extremely gratifying and rewarding. It's different. It has a different flavor and a different edge, but usually it's people who hear a call and are courageous enough to know they need to answer it, but need partnership to do so. Some of the biggest changes and pivots I've made in my life, I haven't done alone. And I'm so grateful for that. And so to be able to partner with people to create what's next, whether that's a creative venture, an art project, a brand, a business, is really what I'm doing. And it can be also working with executives in companies that are looking. I worked with an executive at a big brand to figure out how to create a new studio within a bigger brand. And what was really fascinating was it wasn't, we did the brand foundation and the copywriting and the expression and the work, but it was also about who did she need to be in order to bring that vision to life.
Yeah, makes
Because
sense.
the execution is just one part, but it's the energy and the human behind it. And really getting, again, moving into more clarity and understanding about what you're really after, what needs to change, what do you need to do in order to bring that vision to life, in order to really not just execute, but embody. That feels really different and exciting. That feels like that's what my own creative evolution looks like at the moment.
It sounds really good from the perspective of you use the phrase that sticky juncture that you
Yeah,
hook onto it.
exactly.
I think whether it's your career, your life outside of work, your business, everybody hits that, don't they? And you also said about, maybe what used to work doesn't work anymore or doesn't
Mhm.
work as well anymore, and you have to change and pivot and working in that keyword that you've used a few times, partnership with somebody
Yeah.
to really help them make that transformation, I think is a wonderful approach. And as you said, a lot of your award-winning stuff comes from that kind of approach where you're working closely with a person in front of you, as opposed to what we all traditionally work to, which is a brief on a piece of paper. So, yeah,
Yep.
really, really good. Thanks for sharing that. Now, I can't not ask you about being a published author too. So tell us all about Welcome to the Creative Club, because it's a great title.
Thank you. Oh, that's nice to hear. Um, I'll just throw this in because it feels important. So then I'll jump in. Speaking of pivots and expansion or creative evolution, once we say yes and we take that first jump and it feels really big and scary, like whatever that thing is, here's the good part. The next leap, it's scary, but not as much. Like for me, the big leap was leaving my agency and starting my own business. That felt really, whoo, honey, that felt big. And then 2 years into my business, I got the call from a hybrid publisher to say, hey, have you ever, he's a founder, but he's also a great salesman. He's wonderful. Hey, have you ever thought of writing a book? I believe we all have a book in us, right? But that felt like another leap, like, ooh, yeah, I have thought about it, but I'm not even sure what I'd write about. And whoa, it's a big investment of time and money and all of it. And what happens if it sucks? And like all of the inner critic that comes up and rears its head trying to keep us safe when we're about to make a big change. But it didn't last as long as that first jump. And so I think we build the muscle to be in uncertainty and to take leaps that feel really aligned, even if they're frightening. So I don't know. I just felt moved to share that quickly because that was sort of part of the book, part of my own journey, right? So my point is, it gets better once you leap. Your legs get stronger, and the next leap, yeah, it's still scary, but it doesn't feel as bad. You just keep getting stronger, and it keeps life more thrilling and exciting
Well, they
because
say,
you're
don't
able
they,
to
that
be in uncertainty.
once you have movement,
Yeah.
it sort of opens up to you. It becomes not as daunting, and it feels like you're making some progress. And as you say, the next step maybe isn't as daunting because you have movement in the new direction. But yeah, so let's focus on the Creative Club.
Exactly.
Let's welcome people to the Creative Club.
Welcome to the Creative Club. Well, it's a bit tongue in cheek because really, with this book, I wanted to smash the myth that creativity is reserved for the chosen few and invite everyone to access and apply their creativity to the design of their lives, which to me is the most creative act, is designing our one experience of life and how we want to be in it, right? And I use personal stories of how I lost and found my creative power because I'm always more drawn to books and stories that are vulnerable, where I actually feel the person in it, where you're not just telling me how to do something, but you're showing me how you did it. And then I might get inspired. I might have different ideas to make it my own. Because I believe what works for one person is not going to work necessarily for the other person, but we have lots of ways that we can invite people into our stories and to think about what the story they're writing is. So personal stories, neuroscience research, some interviews also with Betsy Johnson, the iconic designer who's a friend of mine. I said my dad's an artist. They dated before I was born. So it was really nice to have her voice in there and my therapist's voice in there as well. And, women who have really been part of shaping who I am and that have lived extraordinarily creative lives in their own way that might seem different than what we might expect. So really, that's That's what the book is. It's an invitation to access first to reclaim your creativity. I think what stops us from being creative is the idea that, oh, well, I'm not creative. And I get that thought. That thought is a protective mechanism. Well, if you're not creative, then you don't have to take that risk. You don't have to write that thing, build that business, whatever creativity might look like to you. And so I'm here to smash that and say, no, no, no. If you're human, you're an artist at play. And welcome to the club. You've already been in it. You already have the club card in your back pocket. It's been there all along. I'm just asking you to activate it, to realize that it's there and to activate it. Welcome. And then use it, keep swiping as you move along through your life, because the big change that I've experienced was creativity is not just something you do, right? It's a way of being in the world.
Yeah, and I love what you say as well about the book, which is that we're born creative, then we forget it, and
Yeah.
then this book sort of helps you remember it because we are all carrying the creative club card. We just
Yeah.
forgot we're carrying it, right?
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. And for me, that a big shift is, being a creative director at work or at an agency is just, I'm doing it, right? But I also get to be the creative director of my life. I get to choose the scenes, I get to write the script, I get to choose the score, I get to have the set design, and so do you. So does everyone. We just need to be aware of what script is playing in the background and if it's serving us or not, and what script we want to write.
and what a great plaudit to have somebody like the iconic fashion designer Betsy Johnson saying, "This book, it's a wild ride. If you want to
Mm.
respark your creativity, this is the book." I mean, that's
Mm.
great plaudit, as well as many other people who've commented on how great the book is. So, congratulations on Welcome to the Creative
Thank you.
Club. A great book for people looking to maybe reignite that creativity in them. Yeah. And a lot of your own
Absolutely.
personal story in the book, too, right, Pia? Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, those are not easy stories to write or share, but they felt important to the story and potentially to the reader. Um, yeah. So
Yeah.
skin in the game. Skin
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
game.
So listen, I don't want to run out of time. I want to ask you a few more questions. So the next 6 to 12 months, it sounds like you've got an awful lot going on. Obviously, creativity and that rebellious streak and, working closely with people. It's obviously high on your agenda. But when you think about the next 6 months, 12 months, the year ahead, what are you thinking about? What's keeping you busy? What's on your horizon, Pia?
Well, the audiobook that I narrated is that was a trip, is about to launch at the end of the month, this month. And so that's been an extension of the book and the project. And then what was really fun is how the book had brought me to so many places I never imagined. And that's the beauty of when we accept what's calling us. We have no idea where it's going to take us. And again, as I said, that's the scary part, but it's also really thrilling. And so this book connected me, I'll keep the story short, to a musician and producer. His name is Tyler. He's a fantastic human and creative. And we decided somehow we had the idea of I have poetry in the book. So I have like 11 poems. My editor said, "Hey, if you're inviting people to make life their biggest art project, you need to make this book your biggest art project." So I put in, I think there's around 11, and Tyler is producing individual tracks for each poem, and that's been, oh man, I don't expect it to hit the top charts, but it's been such a fun creative project to work on, to see something
It's
that
very
I
cool and
wrote.
quite
So
unique in the book world. Yeah.
yeah. So spoken word album coming soon. That's going to launch this summer, and we're still in the process of, putting in the final tweaks on it, but I'm really proud of it, and it's just been fun. That's another thing for me is I know I'm on the right track when, I feel butterflies in my stomach and my heart's beating a little faster, and I'm excited about the work I'm doing. I feel that's a signal that we're where we should be. So that's happening. And then I have my business, my beautiful business that is also alive and kicking, and a new projects coming in that I'm really excited about. Again, really close collaborations, working with a big brand, different clients, also on the creative coaching side, and yeah, so it feels I'm in a place where I'm finding my way in what I'm calling structured flow, because when I overplan, like the year ahead, what exactly am I doing? I can get the aperture narrows, and I get too focused on what exactly it has to be like, and I can, create stress for myself. This is what I'm learning. And it's like I can have some, milestones of what I'm looking to do, things that excite me, but then I'm trying to have flow or not be too tight. Like, also, let's see what comes my way. I'm going to keep showing up for myself and for the work and for my wonderful partners. I call them clients, partners. And then let's see. So let's have some ideas, but let's also, when I say let's, it's me, let's also be open to what's coming through so that I allow this to be a co-creation and not get too stuck on what I think it needs to look like exactly. And that's a practice of mine that I find exciting and challenging sometimes. But when I make more room for what might be, the unexpected waltzes in.
Yeah, I really like what you said there. The phrase, watching for that narrowing of the sort of view, the aperture, just that in sort of the contrast of flow and allowing that wider view. I think that's a really interesting dynamic that you've described beautifully there. So thanks for sharing that, Pia. Look,
Absolutely.
two last things. Must
Let's
squeeze
do
these
it.
in. I'm going to ask you in a moment to share any parting thoughts with us, okay? But before I do that, if people want to get their hands on the book, the poems, the music, the audio book, connect with you at Kollektiv Studio, or get more involved in some of the things that you're involved in, where's the best place to point them to, Pia?
Kollektiv.studio. Kollektiv is spelled a bit funny, but maybe it'll be in the show notes. It's KOLLEKTIV.studio. That's pretty much where you find out more about the book, my work, chemistry calls, and different ways of connecting. The audio book will be on Audible. And also I have a newsletter. So if people want to kind of continue the conversation every week in a different way, it's called The Shift. That's also on my website. So I think that's probably the best place to find it. The book is on Amazon. It's Kindle. It's also on bookshop.org, Waterstones, different places. So
That's very good. So, parting thoughts. What can you leave us with? Anything we've talked about already that you want to double down on? Something completely new? What do you want to leave us with?
oh, I want to, I guess I want to leave the audience with a question, perhaps. Like if you could create anything next, doesn't have to be huge. And it could be anything. It could, okay, I want to create a new recipe for dinner, right? Like it doesn't, if you, if what's calling you, if you could choose anything to create next, what might that be? And it doesn't have to be one answer. You can even keep like a little notepad and even for a week and just see like what ideas come up when you have that same question, like, what ideas do I have? What am I looking? What would be really cool to create? What would light me up? What would be fun? And again, it could be a new choreography. It could be an email. It could be whatever you want it to be. Sky's the limit. It doesn't have to be one thing. I find sometimes it's really helpful to be able to have a few things so we don't, it keeps the perfectionist at bay because it's not, oh, I have to do this one thing so well. No, you just have it, you run a series of experiments. And so I would just be curious about what what's calling people next in terms of what they might create and make real in the world, and what experiments might they run to see what that feels like.
I love that, Pierre. What's calling you? What's lighting you up? Yeah,
Mhm.
fantastic. Great parting thought. And that brings us, unfortunately, to the end of this episode. I want to thank everybody who's watching or listening to us around the world. Make sure that you do all the usual, you follow, you like, you subscribe, share it with your friends and colleagues. And hopefully you'll join me back here for some more discussions with creatives and leaders and thinkers and creative powerhouses just like Pia. Pia, it's great to have you on the show. Thanks for being a guest today.
Thanks for having me. It's been fantastic. Time flew by, which is a sign of a great conversation. So thank you.